24 things inhibit tshuva, and these are things which are enumerated in the Rambam, Hilchos Tshuva Perek Daled. Arba mehen ovoin gadol. 4 of them are great transgressions. One who does one of these 4, ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu maspik biyado lasos tshuva lefi gadol chato. Hashem does not allow to do a person tshuva because of the magnitude of these transgressions. Which is interesting because we say, en davar omid b'nei tshuva. There's nothing that gets in the way of the tshuva. But I guess the point is that God doesn't make it very easy. Ein maspik biyado. God doesn't make it very easy. God doesn't give him what's necessary. Doesn't give him the help that would be necessary to do tshuva. That doesn't mean that he can't theoretically overcome the barriers on his own, but he can't look to God for help. Ve'elu henen, these are them, the 4. Hamachti es harabim, one who intentionally misleads the community. Ubichlal avon zeh, included in this transgression, hama'akev es harabim alas mitzvah, one who prevents the community from doing a mitzvah. He stands in their way. He intentionally misleads them in direction of falsehood, or prevents them from doing something. So it's kind of parallels the aseh v'lo ta'aseh. Yeah, he causes them to do a lo ta'aseh, or including this is also preventing them from doing an aseh. Hamakev es harabim al asois mitzvah, v'amate es harabim o chaveroi miderech toiva lederech ra kagon mesis u'mediach. It also includes misleading a person from the right path, directing them towards a path of disbelief, misbelief, to deny belief, or to transgress. Or somebody who sees his son going in the wrong path and he doesn't rebuke him. Because if the father would rebuke him, he would refrain from his bad way. Unfortunately, I don't know if it was as easy as that even in his days, and it's certainly not the case in our days. Unfortunately, parents rebuking children doesn't help. They get a mind of their own. They are wired to all sorts of information and all sorts of different forms of influence. And unfortunately, it's heartbreaking, but more often than not, once children get the bug, parents can't really do anything about it. It's heartrending, really. Very little that can be done about it. Yeah. One of the best ways of making sure the kid will go off the path is to get really angry at him and abuse him and chastise him. Unfortunately, a wise parent can really only try and make known the prohibitions and the severity and the potential harms and pitfalls for going in that direction, and plead lovingly with the child not to do that to themselves, and daven. But maybe the person will come back around after a little while once they get their oats out of their system. But in any case, you can't say nothing, but you have to be careful what you say, how you say it, when you say it, to whom you say it, in the presence of whom you say it. And if these are not done correctly, then it probably might do more harm than good. In any case, nimtza shemachti oto. By not saying anything, he's causing to sin. On the other hand, you have to be careful not to say it in a way which would also cause him to sin. Ubichlal zeh ha'avon, including in this transgression, is kol she'efshar biyado limchos ba'acherim, anybody who can rebuke others, ben berabim, ben yechidim, whether it's a community or individuals, ve'enu moche, and he doesn't do so. He just leaves them to transgress. Furthermore, a person who says, I'll transgress and I'll sin, I'll transgress and then I'll do tshuva. Including this is also, I'll transgress and I'll rely on Yom Kippur to forgive me, to atone for me. Anybody who thinks this, his tshuva is very difficult. Again, it's not that it can't be done, but it's extremely difficult. He can't expect Hashem to help him. Since he says, well, I can always do tshuva on it, so he ends up abusing this and never really doing tshuva. So those would be 4 things then. Yes? He causes others to transgress. He doesn't rebuke others. He says, I'll transgress and I'll return. And, Varez Beno. That's a separate one? Okay, could be. Okay. ומאוסון 24 דבורים, מכן 5 מהם לא עולים דרכי תשובה מפני עושיהם. Among these 24, there are 5 about which the gates of tshuva are locked. Ve'eluhen, and these are them. Hapoiresh min hatzibur k'she'oisin tshuva. He hardens himself from tshuva despite the fact that the community has decided to do so. V'omer, shalom alay nafshi, everything will be okay with me. Ve'enu mitztayar b'tzar tzibur. I think this is the second one. He doesn't feel anguish over the anguish of the community if, God forbid, some tragedy thing has happened. Unless this is still included in the first one, and since he doesn't feel the anguish that the community is feeling, which is causing him to do tshuva, he departs from that. As a result of this, he doesn't get merit in what they're doing, and the tshuva that they're doing either. That would seem to indicate that's all one thing. Also, somebody who argues on the sages. Right? This argumentation is going to cause him to depart from their ways as well. He won't know the ways of tshuva. That's either 2 or 3. V'malig al mitzvos. Somebody who makes fun, scoffs at the mitzvahs. Since he finds them to be disparaging, he won't be concerned about doing them. If he doesn't know the mitzvahs, so what schus will he have? Somebody who disparages, degrades his rabbis. And this matter of disparaging, disrespecting the sages causes him to be dropped out of the world. And as he is falling and slipping, he won't find somebody that can teach him the true way because he's busy laughing his way down to the netherworld. Somebody who hates rebuke. Since he hates rebuke, he cuts off the paths of tshuva. Because rebuke causes him to the true tshuva, and he won't accept rebuke. Generally, when they let a person know of his transgressions and he's embarrassed by it, so he'll do tshuva. It says, Al tishkach, remember and don't forget, Mamrim ha'isem, y'all were rebellious against me. Moshe reprimanded the people, and they were embarrassed and did tshuva. As a result of this, Hashem didn't give you a proper wise heart to understand. Am naval velo chacham, a desperate people, and not wise. V'chen Yeshayahu Navi chochiach is as well. Ad shechaz b'shuva. The prophet Isaiah also reprimanded the people until they did tshuva. Lefichach tzarich kol kahal v'kal ha'amid echad mechachmehem. Therefore, every community has to appoint some wise man of their wise and make them responsible. Zaken v'yirei shamayim. He's old and he's God-fearing. Minurav v'ohuv lehem. But he's also loved by the people. Shei mochiach l'kal v'lachzer m'tshuva. He is the official tshuva maker. He's appointed to be aware of what's going on and point out people their misfaults and their shortcomings in order to cause them to do tshuva. But it's got to be somebody who's wise, who himself is pure, and also someone who is beloved by the people. Because if they don't like him, they dislike him, then that's not going to work.
So we would call today, what a rabbi does. Rabbi tells, like he tells people, we hold by the
The Eruv?
The Eruv, this kashrut is not good. Don't do this, do that.
The rabbi can do that. The rabbi perhaps does do that, but it sounds to me like he's almost saying it specifically the person who separate from the rabbi should be appointed to do this. I mean, because saying every community should appoint such a person. Well, every community must have a rabbi, so it must be in addition to the rabbi, they should appoint this tshuva maker. And that might be because the tshuva maker is going to be rubbing elbows with people. And it could be that the rabbi ideally should not be involved in doing that. He's got to maintain a good, healthy relationship with the community to lead them properly. On the other hand, a rabbi should be able to reprimand the community or even individuals when he sees things are going wrong. But I guess, if the rabbi takes upon himself to do this all the time, then he's going to be grating against the people constantly, and that's going to undermine the authority that he has. So it could be that you need to have somebody who's more like with the people, who gets along with them generally well, and can be constantly reminding them of their shortcomings, and that's not going to compromise the smooth running of the community either. The rabbi will perhaps spare his power to rebuke for the really major things. Otherwise, it can just result in too much friction between he and the community. Somebody who hates rebuke, who will not listen to anybody, he'll continue in his transgressing ways, which are good in his eyes. So these are then 5 things which cause the gates of tshuva to be locked. Again, through great tshuva and remorse, he might be able to actually go ahead and picklock that lock, or might be given a master key to open it, or he might be able to actually cut the lock in order to get through. But the gates of tshuva are not readily accessible for him, that's for sure. On Mosan Arba Vesrim Dvorim, Yesh Chamisha Dvorim.
They say the gates of tears never lock.
Gates of tears, yes. Shari Demos Lo Nalu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But here we're talking about the Shari Tshuva. And the gates of tshuva, he says, will be locked before such a person. So you've got 4 things, 5 things, and now another 5. That would be a total of 14. So of these 24 things, you have another 5. It's impossible for him to do a complete tshuva. Because it involves transgressions between one and his fellow man. And his friend doesn't know that he's transgressed against him such that he should ask for him forgiveness. And these are them, 5 things. Hamekalel es harabim, he curses the community. But he doesn't curse any one particular person in specific that he can ask for him forgiveness. He's cursed the whole community. Oh, those Ashkenazim. Those Sephardim. Yeah. Those Persians. Whatever. We're going to do. Ask forgiveness for every one. V'cholek im agonov. Somebody who divvies up the spoils with a thief. I didn't steal. He stole. I got it from him. Who's going to return it to? He doesn't know who the thief stole it from. So now what is he going to do? And by becoming a partner with the thief, he's encouraging the thief to steal more. Or somebody who finds a lost object and doesn't take the steps required to return it. If he's not required to return it, that's something else. We're talking about where the situation is such that he is required according to the law to return it. He doesn't take those measures to do so. Now he wants to do tshuva, and he doesn't know whose it is. If, when he found it, he made efforts to return it, then he would have known where to put the sign and who to speak to and so forth and so on. The person who lost it would have kind of been looking for it, but now 2 years have gone by, and he finally decides, wait, I took this and I shouldn't have. What are you going to do? The person who it belongs to is not going to know to go back to find it from that place. He's not going to be miyayish. Problem is, right? He got it before Yush. And even if he has it after Yush, it doesn't make it his. If he picks it up after Yush, that's something else. The person was miyayish, and therefore it's kind of like hefker, and he can take it, technically speaking. But when he picked it up before Yush, and there's an obligation to return it, even if in the meantime he doesn't, the person's miyayish, that doesn't help. That was 3, I believe. Voichel shor arni'im yasoimim Balmonos, or somebody who eats food, an ox, which has been designated really for the poor, or for the orphans, or for the widows. Elu b'nei adam umlonim hem. Ve'enem yiduim umefrusamim. These people are poor, and they're not well known, and they're not publicized. So now that you've deprived them of what was coming to them, how are you going to know who to give it to? V'golin me'ir le'ir. These folks also go from city to city because of their poverty. So you've prevented them from getting what the community earmarked for them, and then these folks go on. He doesn't know whose it is to return it. There are those who say a person who takes not the shore of these folks, but he steals from these folks. Perush. Shu doichek elu ha'anim b'choyiv shehen chayavin lo ad shemachlitin lo. He presses these people who have borrowed money because of their poverty, and then they, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of mortgage their fields to this person, or metatlin shelen, or their belongings, their chattel. B'pochois mishavian, for less than they're really worth because of their being desperate. And the person, the one who's making the loan, doesn't think he's got a transgression of this. Because he says, Shaliani notel, in the end of the day, I'm taking what's rightfully mine. They borrowed money. Either they won't pay back or they haven't paid back, but I'm taking a pledge. I deserve to get back what's mine. That's the 4th thing. And the 5th thing is, Amekabel Sheikhad Lahatois Din, somebody who accepts bribery to change the halacha from what it really should be. Person doesn't recognize just how powerful of an influence this shochad has. And he's also encouraging this person who's paying the bribery in the wrong thing that he's doing, and encouraging him to do it more, again, either with himself or others. So that's up to 14. That last 5 is also very serious. A person can never really get rid of it because he has no way of fully rectifying it. The people that he's wronged have, in most of these cases, become incommunicado, inaccessible, and therefore he has no way of really rectifying the wrong that he's done to them. There are 24. We've done 14. So there's another 10 left. Of those 10, Yesh chamisho dvorim she'oisei oson ein cheskasoi l'shuv mehen. Regarding these 5, it's pretty well established that he's not going to be able to do tshuva from these things. Why? Because they're things which are viewed light in most people's eyes. And it turns out that he transgresses, but he doesn't really think he's transgressing. So it's like nearly certain he's not going to do tshuva, because it's nearly certain he's not going to consider them to be wrong. And what are these? He eats a meal where the amount of food is not enough for the owners of the food themselves. Like a person who comes into a poor person's house. Umazmin lo harbe means the balabais provides for him a lot, but he doesn't do this from a full heart. Rather, he's doing it because he's embarrassed from only giving him a little, which is really all he can afford. So, but he gives him more than he can afford out of embarrassment. This person doesn't think it's some great transgression because he thinks he's eating with permission. The proof is he put it before me. If he didn't want to, he didn't have to. That's being callous. He had no choice. What do you mean? If he didn't want to, he didn't have to. You're sitting down, making yourself available for food, makes him put out more than he's able to put out. And he's got no choice because he's embarrassed to do otherwise.
Well, you should say, I'm not hungry, I've eaten.
Yeah. If a person's...
If you see this.
What?
So, no, I've eaten already. I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
So that he's not embarrassed.
Yeah. And if I agree with you with any hesitation, it's only because there might be some scenarios where it would probably be better to demur even coming into the house. Why? Because once you're in, he's going to feel obligated to kind of provide for you, and he's thinking in his mind, oh my, how am I going to get out of this now?
He's invited him, or how did he end up in his house?
For whatever reason, he's in the house. Right? If you're invited, you should avoid going, or if you're there, you should avoid going in, or he says, hey, would you like to come in? You say, no, thank you, I'm really in a rush. Because once you go in, he's going to feel obligated to provide for you. And now that he's provided for you, and you say, no, thank you, I'm not very hungry, he's going to feel perhaps even more embarrassed. He's not eating because...
if you're not hungry, you still have to eat.
He might feel like, nevertheless, he has to impose it upon you. And then if you deny it, there might be offensive because, he's only doing this because I'm poor. On the other hand, because I'm poor, I really can't offer any more. But now that he's here and I put the food, at least I want him to eat. I don't want him to feel uncomfortable that he's not eating because of me, even though I'm not. In other words, you start this whole thing in his mind where if you can avoid going in, it might be better just not to go in at all. If you don't need to go in and you plan to sit, you just say, well, I'll sit without eating, but you don't need to go in the first place, so it might even be better in certain circumstances just to say, I appreciate the offer, maybe some other time, but I'm really in a rush. At most, if you wouldn't mind a glass of water, then I'll go. I'll make a bracha, a glass of water, give a bracha, but then I have to go. Furthermore, you have another scenario of a person who's mishtamesh be'avoitoi shel ani. A person has made a pledge against the loan, the poor person, and the one who accepts the pledge wants to use it. Even if he only left an axe or a plow. I believe what he says in his heart. I didn't damage it in any way. I didn't deplete it. I haven't stolen it. That's also no good. You can't use the pledge. The pledge is against the loan. You're not allowed to use it. But a person will do it thinking, again, anyway, it's against the loan and you might not pay. And even if I use it now, I'm not going to harm it in any way. So why not? I take the liberty to use it. And to ask the person to use it is probably also prohibited. Why? Because what he's going to say? You've loaned him money, and his pledge is by you. And now you're asking, hey, do you mind if I use it? What he's going to say? Even if he doesn't want you to use it, he's going to be forced to say yes, because your money is by him. So leave it alone. I think that's the third thing, if I'm not mistaken. Hamestakel b'arayos. The fourth one is somebody who looks at people who it's forbidden for him to look at because of a forbidden sexual relationship that could exist between them. Somebody looks, thinks, what am I doing wrong? Not doing anything. I'm just looking. Shomer, v'chibalti, al-karafti. Did I actually do any act, any deed? He doesn't know, he doesn't think, he doesn't take to heart that just the seeing of the eye is a great transgression. Because looking ultimately will bring to the actual transgression itself. Shenemar, Don't tour after your eyes and your hearts, or your hearts and your eyes. Right? Lo tasasu acharei einechem is talking about don't look at arayos. Lo tistakel b'arayos. That's the fourth one. The fifth one is v'amiskabed b'kolon havero, somebody who gets honor, glory, fame through the embarrassment, through the fall of somebody else. Omer b'libo shelo hata, what have I done wrong? V'vishen chaver omer etzlo, he's not near me right now. V'lo higia lo boshes v'lo biyushu, and he didn't feel embarrassment, and they didn't embarrass him, because all of this is taking place not in front of him. He tells a story about how foolish this other guy is, and in so doing, he kind of elevates himself. What harm is done? I'm just pointing out the difference between me and my friend. The person who listens will see the one who's what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, will be honored by the people who are listening, and the other one will be dishonored. Bragging, that's the word I was looking for. Bragging. If there are five, then I guess this would be the fifth one. Somebody who suspects, he has suspicion of kosher people in his heart. He says, I'm not doing anything wrong. Because he says, what have I done wrong? I didn't do anything to this person who ultimately is really kosher because of my suspicion about him. It's just a suspicion that I have. He doesn't know that just suspecting the person is a big transgression. Because he's considering somebody who's really kosher to be somebody who is a transgressor, and you have no right to do that. I suppose if you know for sure he's transgressed, that's a different story. Yeah? But we're here on a choshed b'ksherim. It's only a chashash. You don't know for sure. The possibility is kosher. So you have to be allowed in kaf schus. If you know he's done something wrong, it's a different story. What were we going to say?
These are all things that people would think are standard things. I've not done anything. All of them. All the
yes.
five.
Yes, these five are all things where the person would have a reason to believe that they're not particularly serious things, and he doesn't really think he's doing anything wrong, because he's not actually doing anything. Maybe that's really the point. He's not doing any act.
So, you can't do tshuva for them, or you won't, because I've done nothing wrong. I've got nothing to do.
Not that you can't, but you won't. People won't.
Yeah.
People won't. Why? Because they take these things very lightly. They don't think they're doing anything wrong. A person could read this, realize that he is doing something wrong, and therefore correct him and do tshuva. But without reading this, without thinking about it, then he's likely just to continue on the same way for the rest of his life, because he doesn't think there's anything particularly wrong about that. So we've got 5 left. It's interesting how he keeps saying of these 24. He doesn't say like the next 5, the next 5, the next 5. He keeps saying of the 24. There are 5 of them. This is according to my calculation. The last 5, yesh chamisha mehen, 5 of them. Hoiseoson nimshach ahurehen tamid. He's drawn after them always. V'koshe hem lifrosh mehen. Koshim hem, and it's very difficult to disassociate himself from these things. Lefichach tzarich ha'odam lizar behem me'od. The person has to be very careful with them. Shema yidbak behem. Maybe he will become addicted to them. Vehem kulam ra'os ad me'od. All of these are very bad. Velu hen, and these are them. Rechilus. Yes? Spreading rumors about people. V'lashon hara. Speaking bad speech about people. Rechilus, the difference is you're spreading a rumor. Lashon hara is saying something bad about a person. Rechilus is, he did this, he did that. Oh, did you hear what he said, what they said, what he did, they did? That's Rechilus. Being like a traveling salesperson, selling these wares from person to person, spreading rumors about people. Lashon hara is speaking evilly about a person, even if it's true. A person says something bad about somebody else. You can't do that. That's lashon hara. What do you mean lashon hara? It's true. I'm only telling you it's the truth. That's the whole point. That's lashon hara. Even if it is true, you're not allowed to tell it. Certainly, if it's not true, that's Moshe Shemra. That's slander. Lashon hara is probably more about saying something true. It's a common response. I don't think you can say that. That sounds like lashon hara. What do you mean? It's lashon hara. It's true. I swear it's the truth. First of all, you shouldn't swear. Secondly, even if it is true, it's a problem. That's lashon hara. If it weren't true, it would be Moshe Shemra. So those are two. The third one is Baal Kas. He's irate, excitable, easily angered. Ubal Machshava Ra. The fourth one is somebody who's a master of evil thoughts, meaning he's constantly thinking on the negative side of things, always misjudging people, always thinking the worst, assuming the worst. The fifth one is Mischaber l'Rasha, somebody who joins forces with the wicked. Mipnei shehu lomed mima'asav, because he learns he's going to be affected by his bad ways. Kikshu tomid etzel l'Rasha, since he's always with this bad, wicked person, roi ma'asav azhem reshumim belibo, he sees his bad deeds, they become implanted on his heart. Vu sha'omer Shlomo, and about this King Solomon said, V'ro'e ksilim Yirmiyahu, one who herds the fools, or one who's herded by fools, or one who becomes a member of the herd following, or a fool who follows this wicked person, Yeroah, will get evil. So the person said, look, we're friends. I mean, I'm not going to do what he does, but we're friends. So we go together, we do when he does things that are prohibited, I don't do those things. But it's not like we can't be friends. No, you shouldn't be friends with such a person. So you go together and you say, well, he's gonna smoke pot. I'm not gonna smoke pot. I don't do that. I don't want to do that. But there's no reason why they can't go. And anyway, what he does, he's funny, so I have a good time. I'm not gonna do it myself, but it's fun to be with him when he does. It doesn't work that way. Number one, you're associating yourself with something which is wrong. Number two, you're going to be affected by it because he's acting in a way, because of doing something wrong, that's going to cause that you become a part of. You're also subjecting yourself to suspicion. Yeah? And if he gets caught, you're likely to be indicted as well. And aside from all of that, just being around the person time and time again ultimately is going to lower your threshold so that you kind of say, all right, well, I'll have a hit. And before you know it, the person who thought he could be with this wicked person and not learn from his wicked ways is drawn down into those ways as well. And the person himself doesn't want to feel like he's the only one who's doing something wrong. I respect his right to do wrong, but he's not going to respect my right to do right. He's generally going to want, right, me to be like him because he feels bad. That's usually the case. A guy goes out with some of his friends and they're all doing this and he doesn't want to do that. You know, it's not very long before they say, hey, come on. Join the fun, be like everybody else. What do you have to always be different for? You know, have a good time, whatever. Why? No, God, I'm not telling you don't do it. Don't tell me to do it. We can all hang out and have a good time, but why do I have to do it? No, you're not one of us. You're not the real man. You're afraid. It's always like that. Why do they have to convince him to do it? He's not convincing them not to. It's because they want to justify what they're doing. And as long as he's refraining from doing it, it reminds them that they're doing something wrong, even if they don't think it's wrong, but at least it reminds them that at least some people think it's wrong, and that makes them feel that it's partially wrong. They want it, and that detracts from their having a good time about what they're doing. So they want to bring him along. So, these then are the last five, which are very serious, and they cause a person to to be drawn after these things constantly. Yeah, he's drawn into speaking, telling rumors and speaking lashon hara and telling slander, and getting angry because he can't control himself. So he's drawn after it time and time again. The same thing with evil thoughts. He's thinking evil about people. As a result of that, he misjudges them. They do something which justifies his judgment, which only bolsters the fact that what he thought about them was really right, and when it was in fact wrong. And it enmeshes him in interpersonal relationships with other people which are not healthy, which only just make him feel more bitter inside, and so forth and so on. It just keeps promoting itself like this. And certainly one who connects himself with a wicked person is going to be drawn in continually into doing wrong things because he's hanging out with those types of people. Kol elu hadvarim v'chayotze behen, all of these, 24, and others like them, afal pi shema'akvim es tshuva, even though they hinder tshuva, mikol makom einan moinim es tshuva, they don't prevent the tshuva. Elim also adam teshuva mehem areu bal tshuva v'yesh lo chelik le'olam haba. So if a person has done tshuva, then that tshuva will be accepted, and he will receive his member of the world to come card. The point is just that they hinder tshuva, not that he can't do tshuva. Okay. Let's stop here then, and continue B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow.